Welcome to Stream Detroit, the show about cool people doing cool shit. I, Jeff Wagner, am your co-host, alongside Sean Yelda and Mike McClintock. Please welcome to our show, Garret Koehler of Assemble. Welcome to Stream Detroit, the show about cool people doing cool shit. Joining us today, Garret Koehler. Garret, you've thrown some of the best concerts, some of the best skateboarding events, and last weekend you actually rallied a bunch of people to physically go pick up a Volkswagen Jetta and move it.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the only cool thing I've done in a long time, if not my entire life, is moving that Volkswagen Jetta. Someone parked illegally at a show, and they weren't moving their car, so we got 40 people to pick up the car. It was amazing.
Did you find out who the owner of the Malibu was?
The Malibu. So this is so bad. So during the show, we get up right before like sort of the culmination of the night, right? And I have to get on stage and read out 3 different cars and license plate so they can go move their car. And one of them is the Chevy Malibu. And I go up, read 3, 2 of the 3 move their car. We have to physically move one of those. And then the Chevy Malibu, this mysterious Chevy Malibu, won't move. So right before the last set, I get back on and I'm like, you should be ashamed if you drive a Chevy Malibu. We really need you to move it. And didn't get moved. Find out later it was the female vocalist who opened up the final set, was backstage with her headphones in. So she didn't move her car, but that was cool. She had a good excuse.
So I want to know about how Assemble came to be. I want to know about the X Games bid.
Yeah, where do you want to start? That's a lot. Do you want like the sequential version of that story, or? Yeah. So essentially, I'll try to do this as quickly as possible because it is a long story. It's like the last year and a half of my life, really. So there were a couple friends of mine, Kevin Crease and Ian Stutters, who were living in Detroit like a year and 8 months, like 2 years ago pretty much, and saw that the X Games had done this global expansion when they were trying to open up in other markets. They'd opened up this bid process, and they were like, hey, that'd be really cool if they moved out of LA, found a new home, Detroit could maybe bid on it, it'd be a good brand fit. So they reached out to the consulting group that ran the international expansion. And they're like, hey, do you guys know anything about the X Games potentially moving out of LA? And the consulting group was like, hey, funny you ask. We're not working on their national expansion, but they are moving out of LA. They're going to announce it pretty soon. And we'll get you in contact with the executive director of the X Games who ran the international expansion. So my buddies got put in contact with him, and long story short, he ended up being in Detroit for an event at Cobo Hall, and Kevin got coffee with him and said, hey, this might be cool in Detroit, and just sort of toured him around the city. And the guy's like, yeah, Detroit should totally bid on this. So Kevin and Ian put together a bunch of letters of support for a bid. It's created an LLC for $50 online and said they'd be the bid entity for Detroit.
Right.
And I started working on it at that point from Chicago. I was living in Chicago, and the idea was pretty simple. It was, there was this huge misperception, there still is, I think, globally, about what's happening right now in Detroit.
Right. And
we saw it as a media partnership, essentially, to tell the story of what's going on right now in Detroit with a global platform and a global brand that was recognized. So we got the right to bid, and we worked on that bid for 8 months, and there's countless, or a year, I guess, and there's countless stories I could tell you about that. But essentially it started off with us and then grew into the sort of grassroots movement of people who saw the value of having the X Games here and that huge event, and sort of that brand alignment, and that we got the attention of some key city stakeholders and investors who backed our bid eventually with the financial guarantees that you need to put in a bid like this. And then we lost, which is, I guess...
We had won the popular vote by over 7,000.
Detroit had more votes on their sort of popular poll than the other three finalists, Charlotte, Chicago, and Austin combined. You know, they put on a great event this summer.
Why was it cheaper?
So Austin did it in a Formula One racetrack, which was 7 miles outside the city. But when you look at an enclosed venue like that, you're not building, security barriers.
I see.
You have sort of a built-in team that's always working on events at that racetrack.
So it was like a festival thing already.
Yeah. They had the built infrastructure, and the infrastructure. I mean, it was at a racetrack. So we were actually planning on building a rallycross track right below where we're sitting right now. So the track that we proposed went around Grand Circus Park here and then shot up the boulevard, which would have been incredible. But you can imagine that's a pretty expensive build out
for security.
For bringing in barriers, for bringing in dirt. I mean, it's just,
so you're trying to keep people in and out. Controlled access.
Absolutely. But it would have been, I think, infinitely more compelling TV, which increases value for sponsors. So it's sort of this weird thing, right? Where it was like cheaper dollar and cents when you looked at the infrastructure of the racetrack, but long-term brand value.
Yeah, the cool value.
I don't know. Maybe
knowing what you know now, how would you redo if you had to go up against Austin again? Would you redo it? Or would you need more money?
I at the end of the day, and maybe this is being too frank about how this all went down, but whatever.
Can never be too frank.
Yeah, totally. So I think that we put together a proposal at first that reflected the actual cost of what it would have been in the city, which we thought would have been about $14 million. These big events cost an incredible amount of money, as you know, if you follow, the Olympics or the World Cup most recently. And for the most part, these events end up being, losses for the host city.
Okay.
The X Games was going to be different though, because you don't need to build stadiums, the same way that you do for the Olympics or the World Cup. So the $14 million is expensive. It sounds like a lot of money, but this was easily going to be a break-even event in the city. So when we put that proposal forward, the ESPN team was like, that just doesn't. They were paying like $20 million in LA. And they were like, that just doesn't compute. How could it be so much cheaper? And I don't know what the answer to that was. I think it was just, I don't know, it's Detroit. It's not LA. It's
true.
Not LA Live. We're talking about doing this in Grand Circus Park and Hart Plaza. Like, it's just a different city. It's a different market.
The video that you created was the perfect representation. You worked with to work on it.
Yeah. I mean, just, the brand alignment was perfect. It was really an opportunity for the X Games to sort of get back to their roots and do it for a cheaper amount of money. The problem is that when we put forward that proposal, they were like, it's too cheap. So they went back through our proposal and sort of padded all the cost estimates.
Yeah.
And then we got back like a $22 million. It came out at like $22 million or something, and we were like, there's no way the event's going to cost that much in the city, but that ended up being our final proposal. And I think Austin's was like $4 or $5 million cheaper than that. And they had just hemorrhaged money on their global expansion. I don't know if you guys knew, they expanded Barcelona to Munich and to Foz in Brazil. And those were all 3-year contracts. They canceled it all, each of them after the first year, because they just hemorrhaged money with their global expansion. So, they had just lost all this money on their global events, and were looking to, they couldn't afford to take what they saw as a financial risk coming to Detroit. They went for the cheaper option of going to Austin, where they could, essentially turn a profit faster because the event was purportedly going to be cheaper there.
So yours was cheaper.
On paper it was.
And then they padded it all up so it was more expensive.
Yeah.
And then the venue that got it was cheaper.
So you talked to ESPN, and you did all that. I mean, you competed against Chicago, Austin, New Orleans. You raised the funds that you needed. You got you rallied the people and all that. During this process, didn't it feel overwhelming at all to go through this process? How'd you do it?
It's interesting.
Alcohol.
Yeah. I don't know how I don't know what the rating is on
this
Detroit.
NC-17.
But yeah, it was a lot of nights at the Bronx bar.
Did you really drink your way through the process?
There was probably a healthy amount of drinking for it. You know what? Like it was sort of all we were going on adrenaline for like 8 months straight. I was actually working a job in Chicago. I was about to move to Berlin, and my trip to apartment search in Berlin got canceled. I ended up coming to Detroit to work on the bid just for the weekend. I'd been working on it for a couple months from Chicago and came, and I was just like, you know what, fuck it. And I went back that Monday and quit my job in Chicago.
I don't even speak German anyway.
Yeah, exactly. That was why I did it. I was like, man, I don't speak German. I'm screwed.
Right. It's easier transition language-wise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Detroit
Absolutely. Yeah, so I quit my job, moved here, and it was just a bunch of young people working on this bid, and we were kind of going on adrenaline. We weren't getting paid for the first couple months doing it. And when you're working on something that you're passionate about, that sort of pushes you through it, right? I mean, I don't know.
No, it makes sense.
You talk about the adrenaline and the surprise, and I still remember the night that ESPN came. You had Mixmaster Mike out in Campus Martius.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because there's this guy that I normally see around town all the time. He walks up and down here very often. And I was probably like 75 yards behind him walking, to Campus Martius. And I started realizing, I'm like, this guy is not moving. He looked like he was frozen in time. Like he had never, this is the first time that he'd ever seen DJ lights or a club or whatever. Like he'd never been. Yeah. And so the closer I get to him and realize he's not moving, then I look, he's holding a Pabst Blue Ribbon can upside down. And there's the rest of his beer was spilled all over on the concrete. So I walk and I get I'm still looking at him as I walk forward. And then I met one of the graffiti artists or whatever. I told him, I said, come find me and let me know the next time you see that guy move at all. He stood there for 2.5 hours.
Is he still there? Has he moved?
No, he is probably still there, standing in the middle of the street.
And he was just chilling, watching it. You know what was so cool about that night is it
wasn't Pabst Blue Ribbon.
That's probably true. That night was it was the Tuesday after movement, which is that day, it was like the whole city was hungover. And I'm not talking about you went out and drank the night before. I'm talking you did drugs for a weekend straight.
Right.
For, 7, I'm not good at math,
right.
But we're talking
Hunter S. Thompson
hours.
hungover.
Yeah, this is Hunter S. Thompson hungover. And the whole city feels like that. And then it poured all day. There were tornado warnings. And there was a moment I remember we were touring around the ESPN team, and I got the text message from the production. Paxow guys were doing the production for it. And they were like, yo, we could do this at Blue. We could do it someplace indoors. This isn't going to work. And I was like, dude, I don't care if it's raining outside. People are going to come down for this thing. We have to do it outside. Because there's something compelling about just a free event in the middle of the city.
It's a free event now.
And it was free, and there was just an incredible diverse group of people there. My favorite story from that night was seeing, I think it was Dan Gilbert standing. There were 4 graffiti artists up doing, they were.
Well, now that's ironic.
Yeah, no, this is this, right? So it was Elmer, Gazim, I forget the other 2 guys, who are just some of the most notorious taggers, but all, serious artists, street artists, from Detroit, who were spray painting on just wood panels at the event. And Dan was sitting there watching them, just amazed, and I think he was with someone, I forget, but he was pointing at Elmer and being look at this is incredible. And I was standing back with a couple people, and I was I bet Elmer was tagging one of his buildings 2 nights ago.
Right, exactly.
Or
Dan
but
himself.
But it's all about context.
Yeah.
So in the context of this is this is legal or sanctioned or whatever. Like Elmer's work was celebrated as an asset when it's normally seen as a liability. Even if you're a 14-year-old girl from Grosse Pointe,
right?
You know, it's an arrestable offense.
It could be a felony.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not careful,
you know.
Watch
but
out
if it's
for
in
Facebook.
a park and it's sanctioned and it's Elmer, it's cool. And it was just sort of that interesting, like, man, if you bring all these people together within the right space, and it's curated in the right way, even people that would never see the value in each other's work, like Dan Gilbert and Elmer.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's like, oh, this is valuable.
Did Elmer see the value in Dan Gilbert's work?
Probably
though?
not.
No.
Probably not. Dan Gilbert, though, bought the spray paint that Elmer used that night. The winner, I forget who, I think Gasm won. I'm not sure about that, but I think so. He won the little contest that was going on. And we bought him like $250 worth of spray paint. I'll never know what happened with what that spray paint was used for.
We should find out.
But, you know, it was, I love bridging that gap between, you know, and Dan Gilbert, he also oftentimes becomes sort of like the scapegoat for, you know, just big money in the city. And the work that he's doing is, you know, is good and whatnot. But it's interesting to think of the chasm between people like Dan Gilbert, Mike Ilitch, whatever, and then the people that have also been living in the city for years and years doing, you know, work that arguably has as much value in terms of whatever. I think the word is revitalizing. Is that the word that we're using?
Yeah. That's what I like realized after looking into, you know, Assemble and you know, upcoming to this interview, and what really like made me like respect you guys, because that's a huge goal of mine, is to bring together the people, like the entrepreneurs and the businessmen with the artists, because there's you know, a lot of creativity and all that. And so I guess my question is, if someone was just starting out and maybe they didn't really have an X Games bid, but they had a vision, a big vision, and they wanted to go about rallying all the people and bringing together all the types of people that you brought together, how would they go about doing that?
Man, is
the answer alcohol again?
The answer is actually, I you know, as much as you say that jokingly, I do think there is a component that it's like you have to find if you're trying to do something that's broad, you know, that's broad and brings together a diverse group of people, you do have to find sort of the things that we all share. And alcohol is something that we all share, right? Like food's something we all share. Like these are things that we do together. I remember I did conflict resolution for a while.
Okay.
And I remember being in Northern Ireland and just getting blasted with one of the dudes who was in one of the loyalist paramilitaries, spent years in prison for, I think he'd murdered multiple people during the conflict.
Blasted with loyalist.
This was like
loyalist
paramilitary members. This was you know, these are Protestants in Northern Ireland, Protestant Catholic conflict for, you know, decades and decades. Many people died, whatever. And I remember at the end of the night, like we were talking about this gap, this division, this deep division in Northern Ireland between Protestants and Catholics, and he sort of represented the epitome of one side of that. And I was like, you know, what's it going to take for you, someone who has had so many friends killed by Catholics, has literally killed, you know, your enemy, yourself? What would it take for you to somehow start to bridge this gap? And he was just like, you know, man, at the end of the day, it's probably going to take a lot more of this.
Right.
With, like, I'm going to need to have a space where I can just get really drunk with a lot of people who I would never, ever talk to. And we just need to talk about women and life and just get drunk.
Find all the things that are in common.
Yeah, and this is a really roundabout way of answering your question. I probably didn't answer it at all.
It was alcohol.
I do, yeah. You know, alcohol is the default answer for tough questions. No, I mean we talked about it when we did that TED Talk after
Right.
You know, after the bid, this notion of like, we were just really transparent. We had the X Games brand too. So you got to remember, like, if we were trying to do this with like our own thing and didn't have this recognized brand behind us, like it wouldn't happen the way it happened.
These things that we can all be a part of: alcohol, food.
Yeah.
And you threw a couple other parties. You threw one in Eastern Market. Was it in Shed 2?
Shed 3.
Shed
in Eastern
3.
Market. That was, yeah.
And at the Do-It-Yourself skate park. One thing that I think is really cool about that is that was probably the last big event that will ever take place at the Brewster Projects.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to see. You know, that I wish I could take credit for that, but you know, I really can't take credit for most things that have happened around like Assembler, the X Games, the last year and a half. That was, you know, the action sports community in the city has took over that park. I don't even know when, years ago, and turned the tennis courts next to the Brewster Projects into this little DIY park, and it's, you know, it's nothing extravagant, but it was a spot for people to go out and skate or rollerblade or bike or whatever, you know, in the city.
Did anybody play badminton?
It was pretty easy to, on Go Skateboarding Day, show up and, you know, have a DJ out there and just say, hey, let's get together and hang out. Like,
and even if there wasn't a skate park already made, you guys actually hauled in a mini ramp on a trailer.
Yeah.
Which at the time I kind of thought it was a death trap on wheels because there was no sides to it. It was about, you know, 3 feet hoisted up off the ground. And I was watching people, you know, like 5-0 grind and slip out. I was like, oh my gosh, like, one of these guys is really going to get hurt.
Disaster. Yeah. One lesson that we're learning is that as we do more and more of these events, I'm trying to become more and more legitimate. So like liability insurance is a crazy thing.
Right.
You were on stage with Kevin at TED Talks.
Yeah.
Or TEDx, I mean, and you guys, or Kevin said that, you know, speaking the language matters, be more than transparent, be transparent in the language they understand.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you guys kind of told the story on stage. I was, you know, wanted you to tell the story again. How'd you learn that lesson?
Man, we learned it in a bunch of different ways. I mean, from the get-go, like this whole be transparent thing is actually, I think, pretty intuitive for our generation at least. Like, I think people are just sick of bullshit and fraudulence. So there was this idea of like, yeah, we're doing something that will end up being commercial and it's going to end up with a brand behind it. But why can't we just be genuine and authentic about what we're doing, where we're at, what kind of backing we have, what kind of backing we don't have, and just hope that that story resonates and what we're trying to do resonates, and then people will get on board. And then in terms of like communicating that story, this notion of speaking people's language, well, like when I walk into a pitch with a ponytail, I had longer hair during the bid, and you know, I'd give the whole pitch of this, the X Games thing, whatever, and you know, these investors would be interested, and it would go on and on for months, and then finally, you know, someone was like, "Hey, have you?" But no check was ever written, no traction was happening. Right. We couldn't get any traction, and someone was like, "You need to put together a binder for like you need to like print out paper," and that was just like. I gave them access to a Google Drive, like the internet exists now.
You have to have something for them to sign on the line that
there's just like no, you still need paper in this world. So, you know, and that really changed everything when we came in with a binder. Like there's something you can trust. People trust paper, man. People trust trees. Maybe there's something to that. To communicate your story, you got to speak people's languages. And for us, we were kind of in this weird world where we needed financial guarantees. You know, we needed, you know, tens of millions of dollars to back this bid. And you don't get that by just throwing negative approach shows, you know, because like for someone, you know, Dan Gilbert was the biggest backer of the X Games bid. He doesn't know who negative approach is or the value of negative approach, you know, and there is, oh, that's a very good question. Negative Approach, legendary hardcore punk band from Detroit. They played at the Eastern Market party that we threw. Okay. So that was like a great example where, you know, we wanted to throw this party and it was like, we're going to have this band Negative Approach play. and an investor would be like, oh, why wouldn't you have like Michael Bolton play or Kid Rock play? You know, and we're just like, because again, like Kid Rock, Michael Bolton have value in a certain segment.
It's very Office Space.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm a big fan of Michael Bolton.
Yeah, no, I
relish his whole collection.
That doesn't surprise me at all. The Badminton Michael Bolton Festival. I can't wait. You know, we spent, after we lost the X Games, we were like, hey, we realized that we could put together a festival that was of equal scale, and have it be about a sixth. No, I think we figured out about a third, like $6 million as opposed to 20. I mean, we were talking like a fourth to a third of the cost of what it would have been. Because the way that ESPN does it is they have a checkbook, they have a brand that has a following, and they hire subcontractors to produce all the competitions.
Gotcha.
So we're like, oh, we can actually go to the same subcontractors. They're going to charge us infinitely less because we're not ESPN, so they're not going to gouge us.
Right.
So we could bring in the same or better producers for each element, whether it's a, you know, BMX or skateboarding, a music festival, you know, a street art showcase. Like, we could produce each of these things and have it cost infinitely less. So we spent essentially 6 months pitching that festival to the same people that had backed the X Games bid. You know, I always hear people talking about, you know, the world just doesn't understand what's happening in Detroit. They think that this is a dead city, but like we're rebuilding it from the ground up, and we're going to do it in a completely different way that's ever happened before. And we need to share that story with the world. That was sort of the thing that I noticed, and that's why we worked on the X Games bid. That narrative is on its way to changing globally. And what I've noticed is that the people who are working on changing that narrative locally, who are doing the actual work that's changing Detroit, that's not the question they're freaking out about anymore. The question that is I think of most concern is not, hey, is Detroit rebuilding itself? It's, what are we actually trying to build together? Which is a crucial question. Especially in the face of a huge influx of investment that the city's about to see, whether it's, you know, federal investment, private investment, whatever.
Apparently, it's a lot of condos.
Yeah, a lot of condos, a lot of lofts in the city, a lot of artist lofts in the spaces that artists are being evicted from right now. So these things are going to happen, right? Like, the city's going to change, but do we want to just be Chicago? Do I want to be living in the city that I moved away from? Do we want to be Brooklyn? Do we want to be Berlin? Like,
no, we want to be Detroit.
We want to be Detroit, right? If we're going to get grandiose about it, the redefining of, you know, the American dream that this place once epitomized.
Yep.
You know, so Assemble for us really became about how do we. It's not about changing the narrative anymore. It's about convening Detroiters around this question of, what do we want to build? And that question is, at the end of the day, it's an urban planning question, but it's also, you know, urban planning in a sense is at the core of our experience living in Detroit, right? Like, this idea that we're building a city together, no matter what we're doing, whether we're Passalaqua and making music, or whether we're building DIY skate parks, or whether we're restructuring, you know, the city's finances, or we're tearing down blight in Brightmoor. But I think that this question of what are we building in Detroit, really that introduces a conversation that allows us to talk about Dan Gilbert and Danny Brown in the same sentence. Because Danny Brown, Detroit rappers in the last few years has blown up globally. He's one of the artists who hasn't moved to another city. He's got a recording studio on Grand River.
They're both scrappy.
Just put out an album, Old, that was widely considered one of the best albums put out last year.
Speaking of which, you're a kind of a curator when it comes to music, I noticed online.
Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, it's funny though. Like, music for me has always been, you know, like an access point for me to enter a conversation about what's happening in different neighborhoods in a city. So I'm like really into local music. You know, everyone I know knows more about music than I do, but I'm really interested in sort of helping people, or just myself, experiencing like local music and connecting conversations around local music to broader, you know, national conversations.
I mean, you seem to be broadcasting what you just found out about.
Yeah.
I mean, when I looked you up, I learned more about the music you like.
Yeah, totally. It's one of those things where it's like, what do you tweet about? I don't even really know how to use the internet anymore, so I just find myself sharing music that I like.
Well, I got to tell you, you're talking about what are we going to build together as a community, and something I've never expressed to you, but I owe you a really big thank you, is when I first came to the city and you guys were throwing the bid parties. You know, I was coming out and just having an awesome time and taking photos, and I sent them to you, and then you had used them on your page. And
Sorry. Am I apologizing for that or no?
You're not apologizing.
Okay, cool. I was like, oh man. I was like, we emailed. It was cool, right? Yeah.
No.
I was like, you're about to call me out for stealing your art.
This whole-
and I'm
no,
like,
no.
oh no, this
whole
is about to
thing
go real bad.
Is a total setup for this moment right now.
Right. No, yeah, it wasn't. No, it was. They were completely a gift, and I was glad that you guys posted them because then all of my friends saw those. Like, didn't you shoot those photos right there? I was like, yeah, I did, and I thought that's really cool, and I always wanted to thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the we do a lot with no money. Like, it's now everything we do is pretty much self-financed, and so, you know, you always want to support artists who come out and take amazing pictures, or you know, groups who come in and do video work, but it's tough. It's tough when you're doing it with no money. So it was really cool to be able to have guys like you, Jeff, and you know, different videographers and other photographers come out and shoot and be cool with, hey, don't go sell this picture, but if you guys want to use it to promote the event or talk about the event, go ahead. And I hope that's paid dividends for you and for the other, you know, photographers who've let us use the work.
So the video, back to the X Games thing, the X Games video,
it's crazy.
I was like, I love montages, by the way. That was an amazing montage.
Dude, the work guys, the Work Inc., the work. Yeah, they got their production group, all young guys down on the riverfront. They have an office over on Franklin, and man, that video was totally them, their vision. We just said, hey, let's do a video. We know we don't want to use like my iPhone. We'd like something more than that. I don't think I saw a helicopter coming, but you know, I've told that story a million times, and that was literally me going, hey, we have no money, but I think I can get us a rally car from Ford, maybe. And then, you know, we got this rally car for one day, and it was like the one day that Cobo Hall would let us use their roof. It was just all super fortuitous. The work guys are like, dude, if you're getting a rally car for free, like, we got to get a helicopter. And I was like, yeah, get a helicopter, get a helicopter. And Kevin was like, dude, we do not have money for a helicopter. Like, we can't get a helicopter. But the work guys were like, we'll pay for, you know, we're going to front the cash, and we'll trust that you guys are going to bring investment that will back pay us for this work. So this is a huge sort of really risky game of cards, house of cards. I guess it's not really a game. It's just building a house of cards, and
which is another good show.
Oh yeah, awesome show. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, so those guys are crazy. They're still doing amazing work. Yeah, I love working with them.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but we got to talk about the Best Foot Forward competition.
Oh yeah,
and what you have coming up with the after party for that.
Yeah, for sure. So, man, we haven't done anything with action sports really since the X Games bid, and largely because it's actually pretty expensive to build out those parks and whatnot. So guys from Zoomies contacted us a couple months ago, so they were interested in, they were planning on doing this event in Detroit. They do a summer tour. It's called Best Foot Forward Tour, and it's amateur skate contests at public parks around the country, for the most part public parks. And what they're going to do is next Saturday they're flying the winner of each regional contest into Detroit. And they're going to have the national finals with each of those winners in the old Michigan Theater, right over on Bagley, which is incredible. It's the first time, to my knowledge, that theater has been activated since the 70s for anything other than an Eminem freestyle battle in 8 Mile. So we're gonna build out a 7,500 square foot skate park in the theater under the old ornate ceiling, and then there's gonna be a performance by Death, the legendary Detroit punk band, and then also by Trash Talk, coming in from, I believe, Sacramento. So they're going to play in the space. It's the first time that a band's played in there since it was the Michigan Palace, and I think that's going to be an incredible event. It's free. It's this Saturday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then Assemble is hosting the after party at the in a warehouse behind Shinola. We've built a half pipe in that space, and Death and Trash Talk and all the skaters are going to come over, and they're going to be hanging out with like the Converse Pro team. And then we're also going to have Rough Francis play, which is actually the kids, I think, of Death. And then there's the Loopers, who is one of Danny Brown's boys. He's in the Bruiser Brigade, Detroit kid, who just put out a new album that's really, really good, and he's gonna come and play. And then the DJ Black Noise. There's gonna be a skate contest. It'll just be a sort of a fun celebration of the event at the Michigan Theater. So, and that one's $5 to get into.
Do they build the half pipe faster than it takes to put the A together?
Oh, absolutely, man. That thing is the bane of my existence. If we have this Assemble A that we set up every time we have an event, and it's always like 5 of us setting it up, and no one ever really remembers how to put it together. I can't believe it's not broken yet, but it's amazing. It's a cool little thing. Thick Air Studios. Shout out.
I think I've seen pictures
shout
of
out
that.
to the homies at Thick Air Studios. They do amazing work. Yeah, so
but
this
no
Saturday,
instructions.
No instructions. We didn't pay him enough to get an instruction booklet, but we got a sweet A out of it. So
Saturday, August 9th.
Saturday, August 9th, 2 to 10 p.m. in the Michigan Theater. That's free all day, and then afterwards, just come over. Just go to Shinola, the Shinola store on Canfield, right across from Motor City Brewery.
You'll never get Jeff out of there.
Is that because he'll be looking at watches, or we won't ever get him out of here? So maybe before we finish the event that we did last weekend with Pasalacqua, Jeff was working the door with me, and I get home. It's like the long event. You're cleaning up afterwards when you're working. I get home.
Hunter S. Thompson hungover.
Yeah. Hunter S. Thompson hungover already, and it's you haven't even gone to bed yet. You're already hungover. It's like
and then Hunter S. Thompson calls you,
and then the phone rings. Caller ID Hunter S. Pick it up, and I'm like, hello, and Jeff's like, dude. I was like, hey man, what's up? 5:30. I was like, for sure he's just out drunk. He wants to hang out. And he's like, dude, you'll never guess where I'm at right now. And I was like, you're right, man. I've got no idea. And he goes, I'm at the bus company. And I was like, dude, how are you at the bus? No one's at the bus company. He was like, exactly. Jeff had passed out in his car waiting for the place to clear. And then when we left, we locked the gates, locked him in the warehouse at the bus company. I don't know how you ever got out, but you got out apparently at some point.
Someone zipped by on a mini bike, and then I eventually caught their attention. They just called me out right away. So, miles this way is all power lines. Miles this way is trains and like Triton shipping containers. And then like miles this way is factories and whatever. And I was like, they're not coming back for me.
The end of Jeff. Could have been it.
I thought about pulling a Walking Dead, like rigging up a ramming system on my car, and then going through the gate.
Man,
right?
But I don't think my liability insurance would have covered that.
But I mean, just
$300 insurance plan.
Right. Just like in The Walking Dead, though, you're always safer inside the gate. I had sharp objects in case like people were gonna try and like rush the gate. I can just pull that move. Yeah.
Always gotta be ready for a zombie apocalypse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially on the border of Hamtramck.
Right.
Yeah, I was wondering why I got a call at 5 in the morning by you too, and I was like,
dude, you just called everyone on your phone.
My phone,
right? Someone's got to break.
What was Sean gonna do?
I had because like the situation.
Commiserate.
The situation was
that really sucks.
I had the red exclamation point on my battery for my phone because like I passed out at like 2. I woke up at like 5 and I pulled like the man.
Man.
So I looked at my phone. I was like, I got a little bit of juice left. Red exclamation point. So I was calling everybody. I was like, just please, like, don't forget me, like, please. I was like, it's Sunday morning.
Right. Tell my mom I love her.
Yeah.
Nah, man. We're glad you made it out though. It was a fun party.
That was a really fun party. It was a great show. Best of Passalaqua, Flint Eastwood. That album Churches is going to be wild.
Yeah, it's good. They were giving out some physical copies. It's going to drop middle of August. Just a really cool collaboration between Jax and Seth Anderson from Flint Eastwood and the guys from Passalaqua. It's an amazing album. The video that they just put out for Baptism, one of the singles, it's absolutely incredible.
Were those the same actors that were in the Detropia film? Because I noticed that they had
the Hygienic Dress League.
Yeah.
They were in some of it. Those gas masks. Some people were like, dude, gas masks are just played out. I'm like, I'd put gas masks on everything if I could. Those things are amazing.
I wasn't sure if the mannequin that was spray painted gold was an actual mannequin or if it was an actual person that was just miming. I kept looking at him. I didn't know if it was. For a second, actually, I thought it was like the same person from like the party down there, with the Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah.
I was like, they got this down.
We got this dude who just gets drunk and stands like a statue, and he lets us do whatever we want to him, like paint him gold and put gas masks on him. Man, we don't have that dude. That dude doesn't exist as far as I know.
Right.
It was just a mannequin.
He's trapped at the bus company.
He's trapped at the bus company.
What's serves as a major source of inspiration to you? Like, what gets you pumped up?
Man, I mean, I'll just say this because it's probably the freshest on my mind was last night. I was telling you guys beforehand, I stayed up watching the live stream of Lollapalooza and Chance the Rapper closed out Lollapalooza. Really talented writer, rapper, nominally at least, from Chicago. He, I met him when he was like probably 16, 17, just like writing poetry with the young Chicago authors in Chicago, and have seen his sort of meteoric rise in the last like year and a half. And he's unsigned, doing it as an independent artist, and I think really changing the game. And it's funny the way that I think I have been influenced by a lot of like younger artists who have just sort of gone at it, like built their following using Instagram and Twitter and whatnot, and are sort of rejecting existing institutions within the music industry. Those guys at least get me emotionally fueled with their music and their work ethic. It's people that, I've worked alongside in the city, I think, that working with, Seth and Jax from Flint Eastwood and Passalaqua on the show last week. There's just a lot of people that are way smarter than me, doing way cooler shit than me in the city. And I've been lucky to work with a lot of them and look forward to working with more of them because, I just sort of feed off their energy and their brilliance.
It does kind of feel like that when you're out here and meeting people in Detroit. You just feel like everybody's doing something really great and awesome.
Yeah.
Is that the identity now? You were talking earlier about the collective. What is our identity now? Is it that scrappy hustle work ethic? Is that really what it comes into?
There is an aspect of hustle to it. It's funny though because it's a different sort of hustle than you get in like,
Austin.
I don't think Austin hustles at all. Yeah, but like New York or these big cities where you're working all the time, like it's not that kind of hustle.
Right.
It's sort of
they're not scrappy because they got tons of cash flow.
Yeah,
you just walk out with a bushel basket and
it's more of a scrappiness for sure. No one's picking up money off the ground here. I don't know. I'm certainly not in any place to try to define the Detroit identity, but the Detroit.
Well, you're seeing a lot of it.
Yeah.
If you're seeing all the artists, if you're seeing all the musicians, if you're seeing
a bunch of
people
them
putting together, skate parks and concerts, That's scrappy. That's seeing the people that are out there getting it done. Sure. I mean, that's what's really interesting about the stuff that you're doing is a lot of you can do a lot of things with billions of dollars, and that's cool. But that's not all that impressive. It's like, can you do $1 billion ideas with $50?
Yeah,
or scrape up whatever you need. You know what I mean? Small budget, big hustle. Maybe that's where it's at.
Yeah, that story of Detroit, right? Small budget, big hustle. I think the other thing too is that it's this hustle, but it's not like this rugged individualism. Like I feel like in New York, it's like there's these siloed individuals walking the street, sort of in their own world, like hustling for themselves. And Detroit is like so it feels so communal.
Okay.
You're hustling together. And I think that will start to dissipate with development, because I think that really strong sense of community in the city is really a result of neglect and years of sort of collective struggle, if you will.
So we have to do it now.
Yeah, I think that's part of it.
It's a survival mechanism.
Yeah, and I think it's a really cool thing. And I don't want to see that sense of community dissipate as
how do we nurture
easy
that
access to capital. I don't know. I think that's part of what we want to do with Assemble is sort of constantly remind people that yes, you're building whatever you're building in Detroit, but we're all building one thing, and we're supposed to be doing it together. We need to have a discussion about what we want that to look like and what the different.
How do we have
are.
that discussion?
I don't know. I don't know how we have it. I know that it starts with convening people
around alcohol.
Sure, around alcohol, or around music, around food, around
around being awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
doing cool shit.
That's right.
If someone a kid out of high school, or just somebody that's just not really in the scene, what if they wanted to they heard about Assemble, heard about everything you guys are doing, and just wanted to get involved, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we're working on getting a more functioning website up right now, and I think
Which is nice, by the way, already.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Website.
Appreciate it.
Them, so.
Oh, right on. Shout outs to Kevin Crease. Learned how to do a little web development to put that together. That's
a hustle right there.
That's a $50 hustle
that's
there.
Right,
I learned how to put a website together.
Nice job, Kevin.
And Silent Giants, Chris Everhart, the guys who did the design for Assemble, amazingly talented designers in the city. But yeah, I think you start by just start coming out to some of these events, and maybe come to the ones that you wouldn't normally come to. Like we're doing the skate event, but in 3 weeks we're bringing in the former mayor of Bogota, Colombia, Enrique Penalosa, for a speaker series event at the DSO.
That should be our sister city.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Bogota, Colombia.
Bogota and Detroit. Nobody hustles like Bogota and Detroit. Nobody. I will slap your face.
I would love it. Delta puts together a little flight package, like dollar flights to Bogota from Detroit.
Really?
Try to get, no, they should though.
Oh, right.
We get a little traffic going, a little cultural exchange.
Right.
Between the two cities.
Garrett, thanks for joining us. We talked about, your experience with X Games bid, Assemble, just all the cool things happening in Detroit, what it means, and we're closing out. So I'm Sean Yelda.
I'm Mike McClintock.
I'm Jeff Wagner.
And Garrett.
Yeah, I'm Garrett. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching episode 2 of Stream Detroit. Cool people doing cool shit. I almost fell out the window today. That should be the close right there.
Falling out of a window?
It's an aggressive close.
All right, that's all.
Stream Detroit.
I always say
cool people doing cool shit so much that they fell out the window.
jump out the window onto the people mover and just like.
I love this. I love this spot. Right?
Did you go to the foam party for the DCFL 2 weeks ago?
At the Cycling center.
He was wrecked Monday morning.
Oh yeah.
So, actually, I hopped the train that night. It was actually a really great activity. I highly
Thursday.
recommend
You
it.
hopped the train that night.
I hopped the train.
To where? You're like, I need a ride home.
I went like a quarter.
Too drunk to drive.
I right up by New Center. I went like a quarter mile down, and then like as the party started to get farther away, I kind of did like one of these moves, like, oh, I need to be back at the party. So I like unhopped the train and then ran back.
And then you walked back. Dude, hopping
A real train?
A real train. I hopped on the boxcar and the tanker, both of them on top
Dude,
of them.
you get the shit kicked out of you by the security on those trains.
Oh, sure.
You get called.
Wow.
That's like a notorious, like, you get limbs broken. Like, man, that was dumb, but it's cool.
I mean, I always play the
Wow.
I play the catch me if you can game. You know, I'm good at climbing things.
Worse,
so.
he's calling at 5:30 in the morning underneath a train.
Yeah, totally.
Jeez.
I got a feeling I'm gonna get a lot more late night calls from Jeff.
Right. If it's 5:30 in the morning and you're thinking, who should I call? You can call Jeff.
Yeah,
'Cause it's
absolutely. Jeff's probably in the same predicament right now.
Right.
Someplace
What are you
else.
talking about?
I
Right
would call
behind
Jeff.
you.
I know he'll probably answer, but there's no way he's going to be able to help me. Dude, just jump a train. What's your problem?
We are Stream Detroit, the show about cool people doing cool shit. I'm your co-host, Jeff Wagner, alongside Sean Yalda and Mike McClintock. Please subscribe to this show at streamdetroit.com and visit us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time, thank you.